Sam Ward stood by his window, his calloused hands resting on the sill, observing the dusk as it gently enveloped the world outside. 45 winters had woven their way through his life, and this one seemed to stretch on endlessly. His beard was turning white at the chin, and his shoulders bore the burden of grief as if it were a tangible weight, which it truly was. 3 years prior, he had laid his wife to rest beneath a cottonwood tree, its branches arching toward the creek as if it too had succumbed to sorrow. Since that time, Sam had existed in quietude, not due to an inability to articulate, but rather because he found no one deserving of his words. The cabin echoed the contours of her recollection. The woven shawl lingered on the back of the chair he had never occupied. A shelf of dried herbs lay dormant, gathering dust, a silent testament to the last time her hands had meticulously arranged them. He continued to rest on one side of the bed, even as the other side lay forgotten and frigid. Once, there existed a child, a daughter who had never drawn her first breath. Following that, Sam ceased the construction of cradles. He constructed fences, repaired saddles, and maintained a solitary existence. The town murmured tales of the silent figure who arrived monthly, exchanging words only when the clink of coins filled the air. Whispers circulated that he had succumbed to madness, consumed by his sorrow. Some claimed he had always possessed that quality. As darkness enveloped the world, the sky deepening into shades of purple and blue, he caught a sound, one that seemed out of place among the whispers of the wind, soft and hesitant. At first, he suspected it might be a coyote dragging itself across the unforgiving ground. Yet, as he emerged, shotgun gripped more out of routine than danger, he caught sight of her. She reclined in the snow beneath the cedar by the barn, curled inward as if the wind had sculpted her into a hollow form. Her dress hung in tatters at the sleeve, crimson stains seeping through the fabric from shoulder to wrist. She stood barefoot, youthful, as still as the deer he once pursued in those lean years. For an extended moment, Sam gazed at her, frozen in place, much like a man beholds something so astonishing that it defies belief. He then lowered the gun. He made no inquiry about her identity. He made no inquiry about her origins. He gently cradled her in his arms, as though he feared she might disintegrate at the slightest contact. She bore a weight lighter than sorrow, infused with the essence of river water and the lingering trace of smoke. As he stepped over the threshold of the cabin, it was as if he had ushered a tempest within its walls. He placed her gently by the hearth, enveloping her in the soul blanket untouched by the weight of memory. She stirred gently, her lips parched and fissured, whispering in a tongue unfamiliar to him, yet resonating deep within his very being. Perhaps Comanche. It had been years since he'd glimpsed any of their kind near this land. Not since the soldiers swept through, expelling them under the guise of peace. Yet this girl, scarcely 20, bore the expression of one fleeing from far greater threats than mere soldiers. He filled a basin with warm water and delicately cleansed the blood from her skin. A deep gash marred her arm, serious yet not life-threatening. The blood had flowed freely, sapping her strength, yet the injury remained pristine. He sewed it with the subtle expertise of someone who had once made a profession of this craft, long before the war, before the farm, before all that had come to pass. She observed him with a gaze that barely lingered, flinching just once as the needle pierced the skin. He remained silent. She remained silent. Upon completing his task, he ventured outside to cleanse his hands in the snow, allowing the brisk wind to lift the heaviness from his lungs. The moon ascended, its silvery glow stretching shadows across the vast prairie. He gazed at the cedar tree, lost in thought for what felt like an eternity. It had once held a special place in his wife's heart. Each spring, she lovingly sowed wildflowers around its base. After her passing, they never returned. Within the confines of the room, the girl had nestled closer to the flickering flames, lost in slumber. Her breath came in shallow yet steady waves. Sam lingered in the doorway, one hand resting against the frame, before he made his way to the chair by the fire and settled into it. He refrained from attempting to sleep. He also did not observe her. He gazed into the flickering flames, lost in the memory of the last time another's breath had filled this room. He reassured himself that she would vanish with the dawn. Yet dawn broke, and she was still there. She stirred from sleep before the first light of dawn, her body tense and alert, a keen edge of fear coursing through her. Beside her, a plate held a solitary piece of cornbread and a few strips of jerky, remnants of Sam's earlier meal. She extended her hand toward it, swift and wary, much like a creature ensnared in a trap. He lingered at the table, sipping his coffee, his gaze averted from her, yet not entirely dismissive of her presence. When her gaze locked with his, it carried neither demand nor plea, nor a hint of gratitude. A fragile accord exists between unfamiliar souls. "You're safe here," he said, his voice gravelly from neglect. In that moment she remained silent, yet she stood her ground, refusing to flee. On that day, the snow deepened significantly. Sam attended to the livestock, inspecting the fences and chipping away at the ice in the water trough. He toiled with a deliberate pace, as was his custom. Upon his return, she had meticulously cleaned the hearth and neatly folded the blanket. He caught her gaze fixed on the cupboard, its shelves lined with dry goods. The quiet ache of hunger etched its mark upon the visage, leaving behind traces that spoke volumes. That evening he crafted a hearty stew, combining beans, salt pork, and wild onion. She dined with deliberate slowness, each motion measured, as if part of a sacred ritual. He observed the way she chewed on just one side of her mouth, a subtle indication that a bruise might be concealed on the other, shrouded beneath her dark hair. He refrained from inquiring about the one who had caused her pain. She made no offer. As darkness enveloped the landscape, the tempest grew more ferocious. The wind wailed, a mournful echo of something lost, lamenting its own silence. Sam tended to the flames, ensuring they danced brightly, and offered her the comfort of the bed. He dozed off in the chair. It was not an act of kindness, he reminded himself, merely a matter of practicality. The bed radiated warmth. She was in the process of healing. That was everything. In the stillness of the night, he stirred from his slumber to discover her silhouette poised at the window. Her form stood out distinctly in the glow of the flames, her gaze sweeping across the distant landscape. Observing intently for a sign, or perhaps an individual, he ascended gradually. "Are you anticipating some difficulties?" She faced him, her gaze lingering as she truly took him in. A prolonged silence hung in the air, both weighty and delicate. She gave a slight nod. At one point, Sam pondered that thought. He had encountered adversity in various shapes and sizes, conflict, deprivation, grief. Yet, this experience carried a distinct essence. This was not his concern. Yet, in an inexplicable way, it had woven itself into the fabric of his existence. He traversed the room, his hand reaching for a blanket draped over a chair. "You shall remain here for the night. We'll unravel the remaining threads with the dawn's light." Her gaze met his, shrouded in an enigmatic veil. Lack of trust. Not at this moment. Yet, there should be no fear either. He settled back into his chair, tilting his head upward, absorbing the crackling warmth of the fire while the wind lashed against the walls. A change had stirred within him. Though he couldn't articulate it, the silence had transformed, no longer resonating with the weight of morning. As the first light of dawn seeped through the shutters, casting a soft pink hue, Sam ventured outside to tend to the horses. For weeks, he had encountered nothing but barren ground, yet this morning, a sudden catch in his breath signaled something new. Imprints of hooves, countless, encircling the cabin with an ominous grip. He cast his gaze toward the ridge and beheld them. Equestrians, countless, perhaps even more. Faces adorned with vibrant hues, sunlight-tipped spears. A figure at the forefront sat high in his saddle, his cloak billowing like wings in the wind. Comanche. Sam's chest constricted not from fear, but from a chilling sense of clarity. He pivoted gradually, his gaze returning to the house. Within the confines of the room, the girl lingered by the flickering flames, her eyes alight with wonder, yet devoid of astonishment. He remained silent. She did not either. In that quiet moment, an unspoken connection lingered between them. An unspoken acknowledgement lingered between them, a recognition that safety was an illusion, yet neither felt compelled to flee. That is no longer the case. The dawn broke gently, its light a tender hue, spilling soft pink ribbons over the frost-kissed expanse of the plains. The air hung heavy with a biting chill, sharp enough to pierce the lungs, and so still that every sound echoed through the silence. Sam Ward lingered by the fence, one hand resting on the rail while the other cradled a dented tin cup of coffee that had long since lost its warmth. He took a sip, yet the flavor eluded him, his gaze following an unsettling shift. The birds remained silent. Not a single rabbit emerged from the underbrush. Even the wind had quieted, as if the very earth was pausing to catch its breath. Then emerged the shimmer, faintly discernible at the outset. A distant ripple stirs the surface. Dust stirred from its slumber. Next came the sound, a low, rhythmic thunder of hooves, echoing through the air. He remained still, at least for the moment. He placed the cup gently upon the fence post as though he feared to disturb some slumbering relic of the past. He turned and made his way toward the cabin, the sound of his boots softly crunching in the frostbitten snow. Within the confines of the room, the girl stood by the hearth, diligently winding a strip of linen more securely around her mending arm. Her hair was loosely braided back, and an alertness infused her posture now, neither fear nor hesitation, but a palpable readiness. "They're here," Sam said. She lifted her gaze, and her eyes, already expansive, became unfocused. He extended his hand toward the Winchester, perched above the door, yet chose not to bring it down. His hand lingered for a moment, then fell away. The rifle offered no solace in this moment. He ventured outside once more, and this time she trailed behind him. The horses emerged into sight, surging over the gentle rise like a torrent of earth, sinew, and energy. Dozens gathered, perhaps 60 or 70, each one mounted and enveloped in silence. Their approach was measured, not a rush, but a declaration. They moved in unison, their arrangement precise and eerily silent, the snow absorbing even the sound of their hoofbeats. At the forefront stood a figure cloaked in the dark fur of a wolf, his visage adorned with crimson streaks that flowed like the tears of a warrior down his face. His horse stood out, the sole creature embellished with feathers intricately woven into its mane and tail, each plume tinted with hues of ochre and ash. His expression was inscrutable, chiseled from ancient stone and shadowed by deeper understanding. He halted a dozen yards from the cabin while the others created a broad, encircling ring behind him, enveloping the house without drawing a single weapon. The girl advanced, interrupting Sam before he could utter a word. She maintained her composure, her voice steady and calm. She was not obligated to. "Father," she remarked. The man on the horse remained silent. His eyes swept across her before settling on Sam. Sam stood motionless, his arms relaxed by his sides, his feet firmly anchored to the ground. Silence enveloped him. There was little purpose in articulating a concept that neither individual possessed the language to convey. He observed quietly, attempting to grasp the vision this father held. A despondent white man haunted by memories within his cabin, standing beside his sole daughter. The silence lingered, stretching out until the wind returned, caressing the edges of the assembly like a gentle breath, seeking to rekindle a flame. Then the father spoke, his voice a deep, grave rumble. "You provided her with refuge." It was not a question. Sam nodded slowly. The Comanche leader stepped down from his mount, the snow crunching softly underfoot. He advanced with a serene command, the manner in which certain men strode into the fray or knelt in supplication. As he came to a halt, mere steps separated him from Sam, proximity ripe for confrontation, allowing them to discern the weary lines of sleeplessness carved into their faces. A girl positioned herself between them. She decided against returning, she stated softly, yet with a conviction that required no amplification. The warriors remained still. Neither did Sam. The father's gaze, deep and timeless, shifted to his daughter. "Then we returned to Sam. She ventured into the realm of death," he remarked, "and once more you bestowed upon her the gift of breath." "I didn't give her anything," Sam replied. "She retrieved it personally." The girl's father regarded him intently, a subtle transformation occurring, not a softening, but a recalibration. As he assessed the man standing before him, his hand ascended with deliberate slowness. Sam's muscles tightened, yet it was merely to graze the girl's chin. "You are not a child," he said to her, "yet I continue to hold on to the hope of making a choice for you." She remained unyielding. "I did not flee from you. I sprinted for those who seized more than their due, who struck the atmosphere like thunder." Silent, yet resonant, the leader averted his gaze then, casting it toward the vast expanse of prairie that stretched behind Sam's homestead. The past lay before us, entwined with blood, treaties, silence, and sorrow. He glanced over his shoulder at Sam. "My warriors shall remain still today." A gentle wave of relief coursed through the girl's shoulders, fleeting yet profound. Yet Sam remained tense. He perceived the unspoken essence. "Yet they might come back," the father went on, "in a state of unrest. 3 days remain. Then I arrive not as a father, but as a leader. He ascended once more with a graceful motion, no sudden twist, no loud orders. The circle of warriors gradually shifted alongside him, their steeds gliding as if drawn by the gentle pull of a hidden moonlit tide. In mere moments they vanished, leaving nothing but disturbed snow and the distant echo of retreating hooves. Sam remained, eyes fixed, until the final silhouette dissolved into the distant haze of the horizon. He released a breath then, not with great force, merely enough to sense its departure from his body. Within the confines of the cabin, a chill had settled in. The flames had waned to a gentle flicker. He added more wood to the fire, sparks leaping like startled birds. The girl perched at the edge of the bed, her expression a mystery. "You ought to join them," Sam suggested, his tone gentle. She lifted her gaze. "And to what destination? Returning to silence? Returning to the prospect of uniting with a man who perceives me merely as a signature on a document?" He remained silent, devoid of a response. She spoke with a gentle touch. "You provided me with a room that lacked a lock. That sufficed." He occupied himself with the fire once more, not out of necessity, but because he found it difficult to meet her gaze for too long without sensing a change stirring within him. He found himself at a loss, uncertain of how to proceed with it just yet. 3 days. He counted them as if they were grains in an hourglass, each representing a fleeting opportunity to either lose her or hold on to her. As the evening wore on and the wind howled through the chimney, Sam found himself by the window, a mug cradled in his hand, his heart drifting perilously close to the shadows of memories he had long sought to escape. She stood at the far end of the room, intricately weaving a strip of leather, transforming it into something that could either evolve into a pouch or unfold into a narrative. Her hands danced with intention, as if this was a familiar ritual, as though the act of creating something anew was a subtle means of restoring something lost. He observed her subtly from the periphery of his vision, not from longing, not at this moment, yet from a place of awe, of all the souls to grace his threshold. What is it about her? What prompts this moment? She noticed his gaze upon her. No smile appeared, kept my gaze steady. "You do not fear them," she remarked. "Negative. What is the reason behind this? I have already forfeited what many men dread losing." She inclined her head with deliberation. "I have not done so. However, I have come close." The fire crackled sharply. In the distance, the haunting yip of a coyote echoed through the night. Sam turned his gaze toward the source of the sound, remaining silent. "I won't ask you to keep me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yet, I shall remain unless you compel me to depart." He gazed at her then, truly gazed. She lacked the softness that had characterized his wife. She bore no trace of lightness or effortless laughter. She bore the weight of a tempest's hush and the tenacious essence of life emerging from parched earth. He refrained from instructing her to depart. He never granted her permission to remain. He stood there, tending to the fire once more, while she resumed her weaving, and the world inched forward, one breath nearer to whatever awaited on the horizon. Outside, the imprints of 70 horses lingered in the snow, a foreboding sign, a vow, or maybe a trace inscribed by the very hand of destiny. And deep within Sam's chest, a long-dormant sensation began to awaken, as subtle as the whispering wind before it bursts into song. The following morning dawned with a soft, subdued light, a sky pale as linen, unfurled delicately across the horizon. The snow remained intact, yet it had taken on a gentler form, the sharpness of winter momentarily muted. Sam Ward emerged into the stillness, the gravity of the Comanche chief's words resting heavily in his coat pocket like a collection of stones. Only 2 days were left. He occupied himself like those who possess an abundance of thoughts, yet find themselves at a loss for how to channel them. Provide sustenance for the horse. Examine the tack. Secure the coop wire. The girl glided through the cabin, an apparition made real. Her touch was gentle, her steps deliberate, yet never lacking in confidence. He observed the way she embraced small tasks, effortlessly stepping in without the need for prompts. She meticulously swept the hearth, polished his tin plates, folded the blankets with care, and once, as twilight descended, replenished the woodpile with an armful she had gathered on her own. They remained largely silent. Words exchanged between them were few and far between, reminiscent of precious water in a time of drought. Yet the silence had transformed. It had ceased to be a mere wall. It was a gentler space, a room where they both lingered together. She inquired about the name of his wife. It was the inaugural moment when her voice resonated with purpose. Marjorie, Sam spoke softly, like the gentle descent of snowflakes. She remained silent. Later that day, he observed that she had carefully arranged the old shawl, the very one Marjorie donned while baking, in a neat fold at the foot of the bed. Instead, she chose the one from the back of the chair. He observed her increasingly, not with desire or passion, but with a calm, restless intrigue. The girl bore a youthfulness that belied the age reflected in her gaze. Within her, a profound silence lingered. Indeed, it was far from vacant. It bore the contours of a soul who had absorbed countless stories, waiting patiently for her turn to share her own. Her gaze upon the animals evoked memories of Marjorie, head inclined ever so slightly, as if she were deciphering their unspoken words. One morning he discovered her crouched by the coop, extending a fragment of biscuit to the hen that had once left his palm raw from its pecking. The bird delicately accepted it from her outstretched hand. Later that day, he handed her a length of leather, supple and sun-kissed, and remarked, "I thought you might want to create something with it." She nodded, her gaze steady as she met his eyes, and softly uttered, "Thank you." The words settled gently, yet with anticipation. As dusk fell, they gathered by the flickering flames, their proximity palpable yet unbroken by contact. She sang a single note softly, not for his ears. A gentle lullaby in Comanche, woven with elements of sand, wind, and smoke. He refrained from inquiring about the meaning of the words. There are certain things that defy translation. Rather, he chose to listen. He started to articulate his thoughts once more, fragment by fragment. Not narratives, not at this moment, only shards. She discovered that he had once served as a medic during the war, the one where kin turned against kin, and the fields were painted crimson. He confided in her that his journey west was not driven by the allure of gold, but rather by the tranquility of the silence that enveloped him here. She posed no inquiries, and he found that quality in her appealing. As twilight painted the horizon in shades of purple, he made his way back from town, burdened with provisions. Miss Lottie, the shopkeeper, regarded him with a peculiar gaze as he purchased fabric and tea. Her lips had tightened at his request for an additional tin cup. "You've got company, Sam?" she inquired, her tone more cutting than the question required. "Someone is passing through," he replied. She narrowed her eyes. "Sometimes the company we keep isn't as pleasant as we might hope." "She is not a source of trouble," he remarked. "She's a Comanche girl," Lottie whispered, her voice barely above a breath, as if the very utterance could sour in the air. "They possess an uncanny ability to ignite a fire within even the most reserved souls." Sam settled the bill and departed in silence, leaving no further remarks behind. Under the cloak of night, he unveiled the fabric, placing it upon the table with a quiet grace. The girl gazed at it for an extended moment before extending her hand, allowing her fingers to lightly graze the soft blue cotton. Though she remained silent, her expression conveyed a sentiment akin to gratitude. The following morning, he discovered her meticulously stitching it into a tunic, her handiwork so precise it seemed as though it had been crafted by a machine. She toiled by the fire, a glimmer of light dancing upon the needle. She appeared serene, yet her gaze darted toward the window. Sam observed, "Are you anticipating their return before tomorrow?" She gave a slight nod. "They shall not linger." He refrained from inquiring whether she felt fear. As the wind began to stir and the clouds gathered ominously, Sam mounted his mare and made his way to the canyon ridge that offered a sweeping view of the trail below. He perceived nothing, not at this moment, yet he sensed it deeply, the burden of what lay ahead. The atmosphere crackled with an electric intensity. Upon his return, the cabin was infused with the rich aroma of broth. She had utilized the ingredients he had provided: dried beans, a carrot, and a strip of pork. With a graceful motion, she beckoned him to take a seat, then filled 2 bowls with care before setting them down on the table. For the first time, they partook in a meal that resonated with a sense of communion, transcending the mere act of survival. Afterward, he lingered by the hearth, observing the flames devour the kindling with an insatiable hunger. She lingered in his shadow, not near, not in contact, yet present. Last night she spoke of a river that flowed through her dreams. Returning to familiar grounds, I found myself small once more. In the gentle embrace of the shallows, My mother tended to my hair, her hands weaving through the strands with care. Years had passed without a thought of her crossing my mind. He turned ever so slightly. She has departed. She inclined her head in agreement. Ill during the cold season. There is no medicine. His throat struggled to form words that remained unspoken. You remind me of her, she said. You listen as she once did. Every silence is a sentence you are still learning to decipher. He found himself at a loss, uncertain of how to proceed with it. Thus he expressed all that he was able to convey. You are not what I envisioned. You are not either. Silence enveloped them in the aftermath. Yet something unfurled. A change occurred. The following day he demonstrated to her the art of molding rawhide into reins, teaching her the intricacies of knotting them with sufficient strength to withstand the force of a pulling horse. She imparted to him a unique knot, one designed to secure sinew to the shafts of arrows. They toiled side by side in the yard, as the wind wove through them, sending spirals of hay and snow dancing into the air. It was akin to the act of creation. It resonated with the essence of language. As dusk settled, she wove her fingers through the horse's mane, a soft melody escaping her lips. He observed her hands, noting the way her fingers danced, agile, exact, intentional. She glanced upward, meeting his gaze, and offered a smile, the faintest arc of her lips. It unraveled a part of him. She lingered by the fire longer that night. He refrained from asking her, yet remained still, caught in a moment of unspoken tension. As she rested her head against the edge of his chair, her hair lightly grazing his arm, he remained still, not retreating from the moment. They lingered in that moment, two silhouettes intertwined by a shared heat. He yearned to express himself. He wished to express, I cannot define this, yet it transcends mere silence. He yearned to share with her the dreams that had begun to resurface, dreams of cradling his daughter, of Marjorie's laughter dancing in the gentle spring breeze. Yet he chose not to. As dawn broke, fresh tracks marred the pristine blanket of snow once more. Not in proximity to the residence, not at this moment. Yet it is sufficiently near. The hour had grown brief. He observed her from the porch. She lingered beside the cedar tree, her hand resting on its sturdy trunk, her eyes gently closed. She appeared as if she were bidding farewell. You really believe I'll take you? He inquired as she re-entered the room. They will make an attempt. I might take my leave, accompany you on this journey, guide you beyond the ridge. She gently shook her head. As you flee, their pursuit intensifies. They will believe you have taken me. It was a matter of conquest, not choice. His jaw tightened. Should I convey a different narrative, they would surely doubt your words. Initially, not at all. You stand apart from the rest. You do not belong to our ranks. He gazed at her, the flames dancing in the background. So, who are we then? She gazed at him. Her eyes, dark, fierce, and wounded, contained a flicker of tenderness. Perhaps we are the bridge of communication. That night, the tempest returned, but this time, it brought no snow. Amidst the swirling wind and dust, the sky looms overhead, a tapestry of restless clouds. They nestled near the fire, their knees almost brushing, breaths intertwining in a gentle, measured cadence. At that moment he revealed to her, at last, the story of his daughter, concerning the small grave nestled beneath the cottonwood, and the struggle he faced in uttering her name, for to name her was to embrace the notion that she had truly existed. She grasped his hand, cradling it gently. Her fingers bore a coarseness that surpassed what Marjorie's had once known, yet more inviting, more resilient. She claimed that she believed she had lived, even if it exists solely within the realm of your dreams. He was at a loss for words. He yearned to kiss her, yet held back. Not at this moment. The instant craved nothing but closeness. That night they shared the same room. He settled into the chair while she lay on the bed. Yet neither of them genuinely found rest. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. In the shadows he murmured, "What is your name?" "Nahili." He savored it. Allow it to linger upon his tongue. Nahili. She inhaled as if those words had not graced her ears in ages. The wind outside changed its course, and morning, the last morning, lingered just beyond the threshold of slumber. The dawn emerged devoid of hue, a sky unfurled delicate as gossamer, laden with ash and swept by the breath of the wind. The landscape had transformed in the blink of an eye. The tranquility that once enveloped the area had vanished. It was as if a drum's skin was pulled taut, on the verge of breaking. The air stirred with an uneasy energy, every breeze pulling at the edges of existence, as if invisible fingers were probing for vulnerabilities. Sam lingered at the brink of the porch, a frayed wool blanket draped over his shoulders, his gaze locked onto the distant horizon. The uncertainty had vanished at last. The Comanche would make their return today. The boundary was established, not through spoken language but through an unspoken stillness, with hooves tracing the perimeter of a dwelling and gazes igniting without uttering a single word. Within the confines of the room, Nahili glided with deliberate grace, her expression a mask of inscrutability. With deft fingers, she wove her hair into a tight braid, secured her tunic with a leather cord, and inspected the stitching of the bandage wrapped around her arm. She adorned herself not as a damsel in distress, but as a warrior preparing for the inevitable, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Sam observed her from the threshold. He felt the urge to inquire about her intentions, yet a part of him was already aware. She had not arrived here seeking refuge. She had remained for the sake of freedom, and now that the choice lay before her, clear and poised, she would confront it, not shy away from it. He prepared the coffee, his hands trembling slightly, causing a few drops to cascade across the counter. She took a seat beside him at the table, and for a moment they lingered in silence, two souls enveloped by tranquility, striving to etch the serenity into their memories before it slipped away. She was the one to break the silence. My return will be desired not merely due to my lineage as the chief's daughter, but also because I departed without consent. They perceive me as part of their world. You don't, Sam said softly, belong to anyone. Their gazes intertwined. They perceive it differently. A woman who is taken or sheltered is a woman who is claimed. They won't inquire about the reasons behind your assistance to me. They will presume they possess all the knowledge already. He gazed at his weathered hands, the calluses telling stories of hard work and perseverance. Subsequently, we convey the message to them. They might not pay heed. Thus, we create them. She gazed at him, as though perceiving a profound truth hidden beneath his calm demeanor. Not stubbornness, but a steadfast resolve shaped by sorrow. She extended her hand across the table, her fingers gently resting atop his. They lingered there for an extended period. By noon, the clouds had amassed, heavy and low, brimming with a tempest that bore no title. The wind swept dust along the earth, curling and whispering ominous warnings against the cabin walls. The initial rumble of thunder did not originate from the heavens above. It emerged from the ground, the hooves making their way back. Sam ventured outside once more. That morning, he had meticulously oiled the rifle, yet he carelessly left it leaning against the door. Today, it would offer him no assistance. This was not a clash of bullets or steel. This was a relic of the past. The horses approached with a closer formation this time. There is no circle. A mere line stretches across the field, a formidable wall of riders adorned in war paint, enveloped in an eerie silence. At the heart of the gathering stood Chief Navo, his shoulders draped in a wolf cloak, broad and imposing, yet his expression bore the weight of unspoken burdens. His eyes locked onto her the moment she emerged into the open air. She stood her ground, not seeking refuge behind Sam. She stood beside him, her gaze unwavering, posture resolute. Navo lifted a hand, signaling for the warriors behind him to dismount. Weapons remained sheathed, yet the air was thick with unspoken intent, as oppressive as the storm clouds looming overhead. You have had your days, Navo remarked. At this moment, she makes her return. She is not property, Sam replied. She is his daughter, Navo replied. That does not constitute ownership. That is a bond. When a bond shatters, a piece of life fades away. Nahili advanced a step. Her voice remained unwavering. Every word intentional. Then allow it to perish if it was constructed upon silence. A ripple of whispers spread among the warriors. Navo's jaw tightened with tension. Your words echo the sentiments of one who has lost touch with their roots. I express myself as one who has witnessed the consequences of a bond forged solely by blood. Navo drew closer, his gaze searing into hers. You would choose to remain with a man who is unfamiliar with our traditions, who cannot communicate with our ancestors, who will never traverse the journey that is your birthright. I would choose to be with a man who allowed me the freedom to be myself, she expressed. One who recognized me for who I am, rather than who he wished me to become. Navo's gaze shifted to Sam, and for an extended, poignant moment, father and widower found themselves once more at that silent intersection. No voice was raised by any man. No one stirred. Navo declared, "You took her." I pushed the door ajar, and there stood Sam, ready to respond. She traversed it. "Your affection for her is undeniable." The words nestled in the delicate balance between the whisper of the wind and the stillness of silence. Sam glanced into a Healy, then turned back. "All that I cherished has slipped away from me. Yet I would never request her to remain unless it was her desire to do so." Navo tilted his head ever so slightly, as if attuned to a deeper resonance hidden beneath the spoken words. With deliberate care, he unfastened a blade from his belt, a ceremonial knife, ancient and adorned with time-worn engravings. He advanced and extended it, not as a menace, but as a gift. "A man does not claim a daughter," he remarked. "He demonstrates if he will succumb to her burden or uphold it with dignity." Sam's gaze lingered on the knife, yet he refrained from grasping it. Navo pressed on, asserting, "We possess a right. You shall accompany me on the hunt. A solitary deer, a singular journey. If you traverse it unflinchingly, then I shall discern the essence of your character." Sam fell silent for a moment, then gave a single nod. Nahili's fingers brushed against his hand as he began to turn away, her hold neither urgent nor imploring, merely warm. "Here it is." The men set forth side by side, chief and rancher, into the gentle undulations of the low hills, where sagebrush flourished abundantly and the trees offered shelter from the wind. The deer they discovered was neither aged nor juvenile, a buck with alert eyes and attentive ears. Navo gestured towards Sam, extending an opportunity his way. Sam grasped the bow, the very one Nahili had meticulously strung days before, and navigated through the underbrush with the same stealth he had employed in the heat of battle. He took his time. He allowed the moment to unfold naturally. As he released the arrow, it found its mark just behind the shoulder, precise and unwavering. They returned with the deer as the rain commenced, not in torrents, but with a steady rhythm, as if a long-suppressed force had finally found its freedom. The warriors remained poised, their faces a mask of inscrutability. Navo stepped down from his mount and faced Sam once more. "Your words are not like ours," he remarked. "Your understanding of our language is lacking. Your deeds reveal what your words conceal." Without a hint of formality, he pivoted to face Nahili. "You are no longer of my fire," he declared, "yet you remain within my heart." He gently brushed her forehead with 2 fingers before turning away and striding towards his horse. The warriors ascended their steeds. No conflict arose, no blood was shed, only departure, only rain. As the echo of hooves receded into the distant horizon, Sam and Nahili found themselves alone in the stillness. The tempest remained silent, it shed tears. They stepped into the cabin, enveloped in a profound silence. She peeled off her damp tunic and enveloped herself in one of Marjorie's old shawls, while he draped his coat to dry. The fire emitted a soft hiss as the damp logs surrendered to its embrace, yet the warmth remained unwavering. She moved toward him with deliberate slowness, her hands unadorned, her gaze unfiltered and vulnerable. "You didn't even flinch," she remarked. "I was unaware that I had the option." I stood poised to depart. "I would have permitted you to do so." She moved nearer, and he allowed it. Now there was an absence of trembling, every breath released freely. "I wish to remain," she expressed. He extended his hand, brushing his fingers against her cheek. Her skin glistened with the rain, yet retained a comforting warmth. "Then stay," he said, as though nothing else in the world could be more straightforward or more hallowed. In that fleeting instant, the tempest subsided. In time, he would recall the gentle patter of the rain against the roof, reminiscent of a lullaby, and how her fingers sought his not with urgency, but in a serene trust. They refrained from uttering the word forever. They communicated solely through the gentle brush of fingertips, the fleeting exchange of looks, and the soft sighs that mingled in the air beneath the retreating thunderheads. Outside, the horse tracks gradually accumulated water, forming small pools that mirrored the sky. The fire within crackled softly as the 2 souls, adrift not from the world but from their very selves, began to find their footing once more. In the embrace of rain-kissed earth, the sun ascended with a gentle, honeyed glow, melting away the frost that lingered on the towering prairie grass. After weeks of gloom, the sky unveiled itself, a brilliant blue reminiscent of a newborn's gaze, expansive as a breath that had been held in anticipation and was now released. The tempest had subsided, not merely in the heavens, but also in their hearts. The breeze had ceased its whisper, the peril had vanished. Sam Ward lingered near the barn, a bucket clasped in one hand while a weathered bridle draped casually over his shoulder. His coat bore patches at the elbows and was dusted with hay, yet his posture had transformed, resembling less a man burdened and more a man firmly anchored. Behind him, the cabin had shed its resemblance to a tomb. Smoke ascended from the chimney in a neat, unwavering stream. Within the embrace of the morning light, Nahili glided barefoot through the space. Her hair cascaded down her back, intricately woven into a single dark braid. She toiled in silence, devoid of any melody. That wasn't her style, yet a new rhythm coursed through her, a steadiness that had previously eluded her. With deft precision, she chopped herbs, folded linen, and carried water, each task executed with unwavering resolve. Every movement belonged to her, a selection made with complete freedom. Her hands were devoid of fear now. Sam observed her from the window, where she meticulously laid out a blanket to catch the sun's warm embrace. The shawl draped across her shoulders had ceased to belong to his wife. New edges had been meticulously stitched, a strip of blue cloth purchased in town elegantly sewn into the hem. Her masterpiece has come to life, her existence intricately interlaced, the past honored, not substituted. He shifted his gaze from the window and reached for the small bundle resting by the hearth. Within lay a necklace, adorned with 3 intricately carved bone beads strung on a leather thong, reminiscent of the one his mother had donned during his childhood. He lingered over it, his thumb gliding across the central bead, before setting it down with care on the table, ensuring that Nahili would discover it there. A present, nothing extravagant, a simple gesture that conveyed, "I acknowledge you, I select you." Their communication had transformed into a silent exchange of unspoken gifts. Beyond, the road unfurled toward town, parched and sun-drenched, its recollection of snow slowly dissipating. A matter awaited attention, a matter that demanded immediate attention. Sam secured the saddle on the horse, while Nahili emerged onto the porch, drawing her shawl closer around her shoulders. Initially, she remained silent, yet a subtle crease appeared on her brow. "As you approach the town," she remarked. He inclined his head in acknowledgement. "Questions will arise. The reasons behind the Comanche's arrival and departure, marked by an absence of violence." She observed him intently. "You shall convey the message to them. I shall convey to them the truths they must grasp." Her gaze drifted beyond him, reaching for the distant horizon. "They will find it hard to believe. They will hold on to their own convictions. It is a consistent pattern." A moment of stillness. "You want me to stay behind?" she inquired, her tone revealing a determination that suggested she had no intention of being left behind. Sam paused, uncertainty flickering in his mind. "I invite you to follow your own desires." She cast her gaze upon the horse before turning her attention back to him. "In that moment, I decide to journey alongside you." He assisted her in mounting, not from a sense of chivalry, but driven by his own desire. As she nestled into the saddle, her fingers grazed his wrist, igniting a spark of her trust within him. They rode side by side, the wind playfully tugging at their coats, the hooves striking the earth with a rhythm that echoed like a heartbeat, filled with promise. As they approached the town, Sam squared his shoulders. He could already sense the heavy gaze upon him. The townspeople observed keenly, particularly when a Comanche woman appeared alongside a man of his kind, silent, marked by the past, and far too seasoned for the folly of hope. They stepped down from their mounts before Miss Lottie's door. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line. Her gaze flickered first to the Healy, then to Sam, and finally to the horizon, as if she were attempting to weave the fragments into a narrative she could embrace. "Well," Lottie said, "you brought her back then." Sam locked eyes with her. "She is not merely a piece of cargo, Lottie. Never claimed she was." The older woman's gaze darted once more to Nahili, yet I doubt the well-meaning townsfolk will embrace this arrangement with open arms. Nahili advanced, interrupting Sam before he could utter a word. Her voice exuded tranquility. yet her words sliced through the air with precision. "I am not a mere composition. I am a woman who made a choice." Lottie blinked, a flicker of something unsettling coursing through her, yet she remained silent. She merely moved aside as they made their entrance. Within the confines of the store, a blend of dust and cinnamon lingered in the air. A handful of townsfolk halted their perusal. A silence enveloped the scene, seeping into every corner like a dark liquid merging with the clear flow of a stream. Sam held his chin high, his hands relaxed at his sides. He averted his gaze from Nahili. There was no necessity for him to do so. Her presence anchored him, a solid ground amidst the swirling gusts. They gathered the essentials: flour, a touch of sugar, and some coffee beans. In quietude, Lottie processed the items at the counter. Before their departure, Sam declared, "We shall be wed by springtime." Though the words were soft, they resonated within the hearts of every person in the store. A whisper swept across the room, akin to a breeze rustling through parched blades of grass. Nahili remained unperturbed. She pivoted and strode away, the lingering aroma of sage from the bundle secured at her waist fading into the air. Outside, Sam released a breath, not in relief but in determination. It was the tempest he had dreaded above all else, more than any weapon or wound. The tempest of judgment, of murmurs, of the past seeking to ensnare them. Yet it had not emerged victorious. They journeyed home at a leisurely pace, the sun dipping behind them in hues of gold and rust. A hawk soared gracefully above, its wings outstretched, embracing the brilliance of the sun. Nahili turned her face toward the wind. Her eyes held a distant gaze, yet remained anchored in reality. Upon arriving at the cabin, the light glowed in a rich shade of amber. Sam removed the saddle from the horse as Nahili strolled toward the cedar tree, her fingers gliding over its trunk, the very one where she had found herself crumpled just weeks prior, the very same that had signified a sort of demise. At that moment it found itself on the brink of an entirely new realm. That night the flames flickered softly, casting a warm and inviting glow. Nahili sat at the table, her fingers deftly weaving a new braid into a strip of leather, the ends coiled ready for reins. Sam observed her from his seat, one boot propped upon the hearthstone, a mug nestled gently in his hands. "Will you feel their absence?" he inquired. She lifted her gaze. "My tribe." He inclined his head in acknowledgement. She pondered for a moment. "Several. Not every single one. I long for the person I was before they dictated my identity." Sam gazed intently into the flickering flames of the fire. "I understand that sensation all too well." She rose, approached him, and gently cupped his face with her hands. "You never revealed your desires to me." He gazed at her, his eyes framed yet unwavering. "My heart yearned for tranquility. Yet the true meaning eluded me until the moment you stepped into my life." She kissed him then, a kiss that was neither hesitant with curiosity nor ablaze with desire. It was a kiss that nestled within him, grounding something that had drifted for far too long, a kiss that ushered in a profound silence thereafter. In the days that ensued, they crafted a fresh cadence. She resumed her craft, etching forms into bone, into antler. He mended the fence with her by his side, their hands frequently grazing against one another. He guided her in the art of rifle shooting. She guided him in the art of tracking rabbits, revealing the secrets held within the way the snow yielded to their footprints. They conversed frequently now, not due to the ineffectiveness of silence, but rather because there was a delight in the act of sharing it as well. The gaze of the town mellowed with the passage of time. Some, though not all, Miss Lottie started to gather fabric that she thought would appeal to Nahili. A young lad from the adjacent farm approached her, eager to learn the art of weaving arrow fletchings. The world did not transform in an instant, rather, it shifted subtly, akin to blades of grass swaying gently under a fresh breeze. As dusk settled, Sam found himself by the flickering firelight, cradling a small bundle in his lap. He carved it slowly, with great care, just as he had done for a child who never opened her eyes. This one stood apart. This one was for the life blossoming in the curve of Nahili's belly. She leaned against the doorway, observing him as he toiled, her hands embracing her form as if in gratitude for a prayer already fulfilled. "You're unlike anyone else," she remarked. He raised his gaze. "In what way?" "More buoyant. Your shadow doesn't cling so tightly." He let out a gentle chuckle. "Perhaps it's due to the fact that I no longer bear the weight by myself." The stars cascaded across the vast prairie sky, bold and boundless. The flames danced and crackled, the infant stirred with life, the man skillfully carved his creation, while the woman, once hunted, silenced, and claimed, stood resilient, cherished, and destined. In the quiet pause between breaths, Sam murmured, "Some tales ignite with fire, others smolder with ash, but ours truly began the instant I turned that doorknob." Nahili crossed him, her hand resting gently over his heart as she whispered softly, "Just as I stepped into the room." Thus they lingered, two serene spirits who had once weathered tempests, now enveloped in the warmth of flickering flames, crafting a life not defined by conquest, but by mutual agreement, not by salvation, but by acknowledgement. They had weathered the lengthy journey. At last, they arrived home, side by side,